Yo, what is up? Hey, before I get into anything serious, anything on topic, can I just say something real quick? Man, there's too much music out here, yo. There's too much music to listen to, too many things to do, too much food to eat, too many places to go, not enough time. Man, you just gotta enjoy this shit while you can. Look around and just take it all in for a second. But anyway, thanks for coming back. Shameless plug, episode 2. I'm the host. I'm your host, Xavier Madison. I'm in Toronto right now. So keep that in mind while you're listening. I am on top of a building outside, if you can't tell. And it's just really beautiful out here, yo. I'm just looking down at everyone. Eating, walking, talking. It's really something beautiful. You know, at the time of recording this, there's a lot of bullshit, a lot of drama going on in the States. And it's just so refreshing to see a very diverse place like Toronto, just hustle and bustle. Everyone just living together as one. But I will say that this place is not perfect. We had a guy that refused to give us a taxi ride. But you know, fuck him. We ball. We got another guy to give us a taxi ride. Shout out to my man, Ahmad. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming back. A couple things I wanted to get off my chest before I start this podcast again. I wanted to say first and foremost, fuck Nazis. I can say that confidently. And I wanted to say second of all, I appreciate the feedback and I appreciate the insights you guys gave me about my first episode. So I will only get better, all for you. Everything I do is for you. Anything you want, you just need to ask me and I will do my best. Another thing that I heard through the grapevine that my podcast could use is something like a shtick, something like a gimmick. So I got the suggestion to use a soundboard, and to me that just seemed a little corny. So I'm going to try to keep it as classy as possible with the sound effects and only do something that's appropriate. Here, I'll let you guys get a preview of what I'm going to use in the future.
Gosh, something wrong here.
So yeah, that shit. I'm going to try not to abuse. But yeah, thanks for the insight. And for the information you guys gave me. You know, I got some people private message me, some people text me. And for a lot of reasons, a lot of people wanted to chime in on the Chance the Rapper conversation. I had a lot of people tell me that Chance the Rapper matured in his music because, you know, of his age or because he kicked his Xanax addiction, which was a good point. And also just because he had a daughter, which was another good point. And I'm sure that all of these things combine to make him more mature. And this is all great, but at the end of the day, regardless of the reason for his tonal shift in music, I'm just really not feeling his content as much as I was during acid rap. And that could just be a me problem, yo. That could just be because I'm not goody two shoes, happy-go-lucky, coloring book type of guy. But whatever. Fuck it. We need villains in this world to make everyone feel better. One more thing, yo. I'm just going to say it really feels like a Drake kind of night right now. It really just could be because I'm in Toronto or because I'm alone on a rooftop balcony watching everyone enjoy their time, blah, blah, blah. But it really feels like a Drake kind of night. So if you have the time, just put on anything from Room for Improvement until if you're reading this it's too late and just enjoy yourselves. You don't need to put on What a Time to Be Alive, Views, or More Life. That shit won't do anything to you. But put on some of that old Drake and just do yourself a favor. But that leads me to other music I've been listening to recently that I want to share with you guys. Before I list all that music, can I just say that I am a huge asshole for not getting into this one artist when I should have. His name is Kevin Abstract, and he is part of a group called Brockhampton. And I will be the first to admit that I was not feeling Kevin Abstract's mixtape, MTV 1987, which was how I first got introduced to him. That came out 3 years ago, 2014. I remember where I was when I downloaded it. I was in my basement on the computer looking at Dat Piff, and I think I saw it on there. And I remember watching a video of him singing in a grocery store, and I thought it was kind of cool. And I listened to the album, and for some reason, I thought it was whack at the time. Whatever. I was stupid, because the music that they're releasing now is just so good. Brockhampton's Saturation mixtape is one of the best projects I've heard this year. It's very, it has a very young spirit. That's the best way I can put it. They're just a very interesting and exciting hip-hop group out right now, and no one's making music that sounds like theirs. They have another mixtape that I listened to when it came out. I think it had a yellow cover. Let me look it up really quick. Oh, yeah, All American Trash. That was pretty good, too, but Saturation is better. All American Trash, let's see. Yeah, that came out 2016. I remember listening to that on the plane. I won't lie, it put me to sleep, but it wasn't bad. But no, the Saturation mixtape will not put you to sleep at all. It is a very exciting listen. They're releasing the sequel, Saturation 2, August 25th, I believe. Everyone, if you have not checked them out yet, that's Brockhampton. So Brock, like the guy from Pokemon, and Hampton, like the Hamptons, Brockhampton. And the front man of the group is Kevin Abstract. So please check them out. Give them a chance. Don't be like I was in 2014. Get on the wave when you first hear them, because they do make great music. But yeah, I'll be the first to say that the LGBTQ community is killing it with the music right now. I've been really listening to a lot of Mickey, a rapper who's very talented, and Serpent with Feet, who is a singer, who is also very talented. I will put their music in the playlist. I'll put Brockhampton, Mickey, Serpent with Feet all in the playlist so you guys can get introduced to them. Also, let me know if you guys actually listen to that shit, because if no one's will listen to the playlist, I'm not going to make them, like, curate them anymore. And if you just want music recommendations or something like that, you can just DM me or text me. I don't care. Or you can always get at me at XAVIEHUR on Twitter or Instagram, and I will gladly talk about music with you. But yeah, in the meantime, you can check out the playlist for this episode. But enough bullshit, yo. Let's get into the actual episode, all right? So as you can tell by the title, this episode is kind of a broader concept than the last episode. Today we're just going to be talking about the genre of hip-hop and what it has become versus what it started out as. So if you've been paying attention to anything in the media recently, even if you just follow Complex on Twitter at the very least, then maybe in the past couple of weeks you have seen the phrase that rap has surpassed rock as the most popular American genre or something like that. And even before that was announced, you could hear rumblings of the phrase that rap is the new rock and roll. Kanye West said it in his interview in 2013 that rap is the new rock and roll and that he is the biggest rock star in the world, which honestly, he might be. I'm not going to even say that that's crazy because that is a very valid claim, but we can get more into that later. The point is that if you've just looked around, listened to the radio, turned on the TV, opened a magazine, gone online, then it is more than obvious to you that rap is indeed the most popular genre in the U.S. right now, and we are really feeling it. I mean, rap is everywhere you go. If you look outside, I mean, I just turned on my TV, and this wasn't recently, but I remember watching a commercial with Lil Yachty in there, and it was for Target. And you have to keep in mind that that's not just some fashion brand right there. That's Target. Target is a company that relies heavily on its family-friendly image, and they are hiring an artist like Lil Yachty, who I'm not saying isn't family-friendly, but he's a rapper, and they're hiring Lil Yachty for their commercial, which is just an amazing feat for the culture. You know, that's what everyone likes to say, for the culture. So yeah, rap is definitely the popular kid in town right now. Now, as someone who has always listened to music and started listening to music through rap music, I remember a time when it was not the predominant sound on the radio, and I was a wee lad at the time. I was a very young child, but I do remember when if rap was the predominant sound on the radio, it was on a specifically black or urban quote unquote radio station. That's what they like to call black stations, urban. But now it's on every station, and the fact of the matter is, if a radio station wants to stay alive, then they're almost obligated to play urban music unless they specialize in something else like country. But if there is a pop radio station, they are staying afloat by playing rap music, period. So we're currently living in an age where hip-hop is dominating radio, streaming, top 40, arenas, and even television, as I mentioned before. And I could get into the exact reasoning for why hip-hop has permeated itself into every crevice of American culture. There's things like executives like Lear Cohen or Kevin Liles who use artists to promote products so they can collect more money, more residuals from these 360 deals that trap these artists. Shout out to Joe Budden, Everyday Struggle. Check that out. But, I'm not going to get into all that right now because that is really boring, actually, and I'm not here to bore you to death. I would just rather talk about how we got to the position of rap culturally being the new rock and roll, which is a pretty interesting story, or at least examination of American culture. So having been around, been a genre or an idea at the very least since the 70s, rap music has crept its way into the mainstream in increments in the past 40 plus years. Some would say it has reached its creative height in the 80s, where it experienced a golden age in the latter part of that decade and in the early part of the 90s. But still at the time, it was competing with other genres. And when I say competing, I don't mean rappers weren't actively trying to be rock stars aesthetically, but the genre itself was competing for popularity, I guess you could say. And it was just going against genres such as rock, and that includes, prog rock, stadium rock, and then eventually it turned into punk music in the 80s, and then grunge music in the 90s. And it even incorporated, rap always incorporated some of those sounds into its own music because that really is the heart of the genre, repurposing genres for, maximum musical effect. And all of a sudden we get to the 21st century and then bam, rap is very much the new rock, and more so the 2010s. But still, even in the 2000s, rap still had superstars. We can talk about 50 Cent, who went diamond, but that is a whole another topic. I used to be a 50 Cent and Eminem stan, so I could talk about them for hours, but I will not. But I really do see a lot of people questioning how rap, or more so hip-hop, got into the state or the popularity that it is at now. And it really is obvious to me, but if you haven't figured it out already, it is because of the cultural relevance of the genre and the subject matter and the sound of the music. Part of what makes hip-hop so compelling, really, is just how fascinating these artists are. I mean, just as people, their stories are really extraordinary, and it displays a lifestyle that, many new fans, at least, are far, far removed from. And, a lot of people see a lot of these rappers as almost like heroes or myths, and that this lifestyle is just mythological, something that, doesn't even exist to them in their world because they don't see it. But, this lifestyle is indeed very real, whether it be one of complete opulence or, just a gang lifestyle. They're both very, very real lifestyles. But really, that's just a facet of hip-hop's mass appeal. But really, when you think about it, it only makes sense that such a marginalized community, specifically, I guess, black people, they would make music like this or such culturally relevant music at the time, right now, because these problems are very real. And to those who are observant of the culture and not really living it, it just becomes fascinating. And, fascination isn't always a bad thing. It's not like, fetishizing what people want to say, blah, blah, blah. It's okay if you don't live that life and still enjoy the music. The music is for everybody. That's why I want to give a shout out to the LGBTQ community, because even though I might not be a part of it, I can still recognize, the talent in there, the music they're putting out. Like I said, shout out to Mickey, Serpent with Feet, Kevin Abstract, And Dev Hynes, who is an OG to me. If you haven't seen my tweets about him or like me just talk about Blood Orange all the time, I'm a big fan of Dev Hynes, but I digress. Really, that is the problem though with the music or the pop music of yesteryear. Rock stars of the past, and specifically more so their demographic, they're not getting the shine that they used to in this modern era. So as crass as it might sound, the cliche of hearing a white guy with a guitar is just getting kind of played out. Not to say that there aren't white guys with guitars making great music right now. Ed Sheeran is not one of them. But there are, people making great music right now in that demographic. But the problem is the mainstream, at least, is kind of tired of hearing that same old narrative. They'll always have major fans, but, they're just not getting the artistic merit that rap and hip hop is getting right now, just because we've heard these stories before. And, in order for these genres to get recognition, they usually need to have something about them that's pushing the envelope. Something like, Japanese Breakfast, who has a female frontman. So really it is all about demographic shifting, because we do like to hear new stories, new triumphs that just encapsulate the American spirit. Because at the end of the day, the true American spirit is really just about struggle, underdog stories, and triumph in the face of adversity. And so it only makes sense that marginalized communities would have the best stories to tell about these things. Not to say that everyone doesn't have their own struggle, but, you obviously know what I'm getting at. But just think about it. And all the music, movies, television, really any media, anything you consume, it all revolves around characters. And so you really need to buy into the identity or the persona that these people are presenting to you. Because if you don't, the music comes across as either vapid, a slap in the face, or you just plain aren't enjoying it to its fullest extent. See, that's why I can also listen to rock music and like some songs, like a handful of songs by a band. But I would rarely call myself a fan of bands like, the Eagles or even Oasis, even though there are Eagles songs that I enjoy. But these frontmen are just such relentless assholes whose stories just aren't compelling to me. They are just not anything fresh. And granted, they're not my era, but it's still not anything fresh I'm listening to. And that doesn't take away from, the musical talent that these guys have. It's just that, their personalities of being relentless assholes, coupled with the fact that they've just been so vehemently against everything hip-hop and, quote-unquote urban. I can get into the example of Oasis with Jay-Z performing in Europe. Just the way that they handled that situation, acting all offended just because Jay-Z was popular in the UK. That was just very pretentious. And, the things Don Henley of the Eagles has said about Kanye West and refusing to let Frank Ocean use Hotel California in his mixtape Nostalgia Ultra. There's just a lot of reasons I don't really fuck with these guys. And it just goes back to my point that because I don't identify or buy into their characters or personas, the music is not clicking with me fully. But this emphasis on character is not something that is only applicable to music and movies. You can even see it in real life. If you look at the NBA, for example, or just the sports industry in America, the NBA is on the rise, domestically and globally. The NBA is doing great overseas, while the NFL and MLB is declining, even here in America. Even though the NFL is still the number one sport in America, or the number one sports league in America. Keep in mind that we are still the country that voted in Donald Trump, and we are clearly going through a transitional period right now. So there is a lot of change to be coming. Change to be expected. And like I said, you can see that in the rise of the NBA. These players, these basketball players, we like to see them perform and grow. We like to see them excel and do better in their craft, because at the end of the day, we are invested in them, and people can't say the same thing about MLB players, save for maybe like 2 or 3. We're just not invested into them and their personalities, and you have to really give a lot of credit to the NBA, who is, as far as sports leagues go, fairly liberal with how they let their players, express themselves. It's still not a free-for-all or anything. Like, people aren't still allowed to be as outspoken as they want to, but it's not like the NFL, which is just, silencing players. But we get into that on another day, and maybe like more than one podcast too. That could take up like 10 of those shits, but whatever. Back to the matter at hand. Character is everything. People need to buy into the persona that people are giving off, and it can even be the same thing in everyday real life. Like, no one's gonna fuck with you if they think you're fake. Like, if it's clear that you're putting on a front, no one's gonna really vibe or be cool with you like that. So the persona needs to be authentic. It needs to be likable, and it needs to just be it needs to be effortless, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind. That's some everyday advice too right there. I know it's not, the easiest advice to apply, but shit, that's gems right there. But really, all this talk of character is just, like I said, another facet for why hip-hop has become so popular. There's also smaller pieces that aren't as broad. Like, you have to thank Kanye West, who really doesn't get enough credit for what he has done, but he really brought quality hip-hop music that a white, or predominantly suburban at least, audience could identify with more so fully. And that's not to say that that demographic could enjoy hip-hop before. They can always enjoy the music, but Kanye really brought quality music that they could identify with into the mainstream. Because at the end of the day, and I'm probably going to say this a lot throughout this podcast, people just want to hear real shit. People don't want to be bullshit because, people are smarter than we like to give them credit for. People don't want to be bullshitted. They want to hear that real shit, that good stuff. And, that's why hip-hop is just so popular right now, because there's something for everybody. I mean, you could be from, the city, grow up in the city your whole life, or, just be from the burbs, and there's still hip-hop that you can fully identify with. And, that just makes people appreciate the genre more as a whole. But that leads me into more of a problem that a lot of people who have been into hip-hop more so their whole life and not since it's been popular, a problem that they have had with seeing the genre rise up like this. And to put it simply, everyone is pulling up a seat to the table now, and not everyone is as accepting of that, especially, old heads. And that can be said about black culture, period, not just hip-hop, because, recently I've had a lot of people tell me that being black is, kind of in or trendy right now. And it's easy to see where you could get that idea from, because when you look at movies like, Moonlight winning, Oscars, Best New Picture or just Best Picture of the Year, and Get Out, being a commercial and critical smash success, it's very easy to see where you could get this idea from. I mean, not only that, just look at TV. We got Power, Atlanta, Insecure, 3 huge shows that are commercial and critical successes. And even just look at the commercials on TV. There's so many people of color on these commercials now. But that latter point is more so corporations trying to cash in on the real reason why people think being black is trendy. And, the same can be said about The Bachelorette. But, man, that's another rant. There's a lot of shit I could just go on about today. But, I'm just not going to do that. I should make a whole podcast dedicated to that Bachelorette shit, though, because that's some bullshit. But anyway, there's always been plenty of content and discourse within the black community that may seem trendy now, but it really has always been there. The thing is that it just took place behind closed doors. So these conversations were taking place, at home or at churches or barbershops, corners, parks. And now it's taking place on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And really places where it's exposed for everyone to see. So you got to think, guys. Social media has wiped privacy completely clean. The conversations that we've had about music, complexion, politics, sexuality, culture, all that shit, it's been exposed to the mainstream now. Like these aren't conversations that we've just started having, but now they're not just our conversations anymore. Everyone is chiming in on them, and so now it's exposed in its most raw form. This is real shit. This isn't like that shit you would see on primetime major network television, the 70s, 80s. This isn't some black sitcom. It's real conversation. But really, the culture and rap and all of its intersections, they're really just being dissected by everyone, no matter the background. And it just means that the culture is a public discourse that can't be ignored. And I get it, I know how people can see it as being intrusive. And it really is comical, when you go on Twitter and see just a bunch of people who aren't even like, black, just say shit like black men aren't shit. Not that I give a fuck. It's just kind of funny. But, or, you just see like suburban middle schoolers review like a Kanye West album. Just like funny stuff like that. A lot of people just seem to be irked by. But, I'm just here to say that there is a bright side and stuff like that. Really, the culture is being pushed into the mainstream, and the people who need to be hearing the message, they're now listening. But I will say the problem does occur when people just say shit to seem like they're in on something. Like, people will just spout something they see online that they have no idea about, they know nothing about, just because their favorite user might have said it. But for real, though, on the topic of hip-hop, I know it can seem mocking when you see someone wearing like a shirt of your favorite rapper without being connected to the culture or the struggle. But at the end of the day, man, it's okay. As we do become more accepting of other cultures in this country, we just do need to educate and immerse ourselves in them. And the really only the problem happens when, people consume culture but aren't as accepting of, exposing theirs. So you know what I'm saying? Like people who constantly consume like rap or hip hop, but get mad when their culture is being consumed too. And there's also the argument that black culture isn't hip hop, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it really is. Like, we're not immigrants. Like, we can't just go back to some motherland. Like, I guess we're immigrants, but we're not immigrants in the way where we can just go back to some motherland and visit our relatives and take up those traditions. Like the shit that we built here, the things that we built here, as modern as they may be, it still is culture. So really, we just gotta understand that this whole living in America thing, it's a give and take of culture, and it's just gonna take some time for everyone to be accepting of that. Just know your role before you get into it. Don't be that guy that gets into something like one day and then just starts critiquing it the next day. Just know yourself and be observant of the space that you're in. That's really all I'm asking. So hip hop is the new rock. There's nothing you or I can do about it except sit back and see how it turns out. I personally think that there's a lot of gas left in the tank. I think we have a long ways to go. But you and I consume hip hop rap daily. Especially if you listen to this shit right now, because the only reason you would be listening to this is if A, you're doing me a favor, thank you, or B, you're just very into the culture and you stumbled upon it. But, the point is we just consume this so much. And so before we, get mad at someone for, wearing a Thrasher t-shirt or having a questionable tattoo or, preferring a certain type of person, we need to think and ask, how authentic are we really? Because at the end of the day, we're just combinations of everything that we've been exposed to. All I ask from you all is that you please, please, please do not let hip-hop become a commercial abomination like EDM. And I was never into EDM, but, the way that genre just turned into just such a caricature of itself was fascinating. But anyway, thank you, and follow me on all platforms at Xavier. That's XAVIEHUR. And please have a great day. Listen to some Drake. Be easy. Come back next week. I love you. Goodbye.
Gosh, something wrong here.